Well, welcome to Channel X TV. Delighted to be joined today by Mitchell from ChannelEngine, and we're going to be discussing some exciting marketplaces with huge potential for retailers looking to expand. And some of them are coming from our joint Diversify to Thrive white paper, which we'll put a link just down below so that you can download it for free. And we're going to be going to the Netherlands, to Germany, to the UK, but we're also going to look at a couple of other marketplaces. We'll be visiting the Middle East. But before we get on to the exciting part, welcome, Mitchell. How are you today?
Great, Chris. Thanks for having me today on the show. Really excited to talk about some of these great channels, and yeah, looking forward.
Excellent. Well, before I know we had some marketplaces we wanted to talk about. Before we get to those, though, I want to address the big one, which is Temu or Temu, a Chinese marketplace which has exploded from literally nowhere a year ago to being all over the internet. So what do you see happening with Temu, and what do you see as the opportunity for UK and European retailers?
Yeah, Temu is pretty phenomenal, Chris. Just a little bit of background. Temu, of course, is the international version of Pinduoduo, one of the biggest e-commerce companies from China. And after their success in China, which revolved, among others, a lot around group buying, so buying products in groups to get more discounts, they launched Temu a year and a half ago in the US and Europe and beyond. And their growth has just been phenomenal. Everything from, I think, 3 billion in ad spend last year that, of course, has gotten so much traffic to the app, as well as lots of innovative ways to get more users onto the app, like offering free products and you know, by that acquiring more users. So the growth has been massive. The impact of that has been manifold. So, for example, we see that some marketplaces are dropping their commission fees to match and to attract sellers and grow, as well as, you know, needing to you know, pump up their own ad spend, of course, to counter that, which is problematic for some of the smaller marketplaces out there. What is the opportunity for UK and European sellers? There are some rumors that the platform is opening up to brands from the UK and Europe and the US as well. So moving away from just cross-border China to consumers in the West. That could be a great opportunity. That said, we have seen this before, of course, with platforms like Wish, Shopee, AliExpress as well. And the success in the past has been a bit mixed when you look at the willingness of the consumer to use these type of platforms to buy products from renowned European brands. So the big question mark is, will Temu be able to make that shift that other platforms haven't really been able to make in the past? And the future will have to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because Temu are known for having really low-cost Chinese goods, and I've got to admit, a lot of them are exactly the same as you could buy on more traditional marketplaces. They're just at a lower price point because they're coming direct from the factory, but you're going to wait a week, 10 days or so for them to arrive. So it's a price versus convenience decision on whether you buy there or not. But I think the interesting point will be, will some of the larger brands and retailers adopt them? And we saw this like 2 decades ago with eBay and Amazon, where large retailers just didn't want to be on marketplaces at all. But today, pretty much every brand from Dyson to Ninja are already on these platforms. I'm wondering who will be the big name to jump in first, and will others follow? Because it's having those names and those big brands which is going to make the consumers want to stick with Temu. So it'll be interesting. I think you're right that possibly smaller brands might jump in first. Do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Of course, I think a platform like Temu, having had the massive success in being able to get market share in Europe and the US through also all sorts of innovative ways, they could definitely surprise us and you know, beat expectations that were set by other cross-border platforms in the past. one of the reasons that could give them that success and makes it interesting for brands is the fact that they do share a lot of customer data that is coming in through the Temu app with the sellers on the platform. So I think one of the challenges for brands on many marketplaces, the big ones like Amazon, but also lots of local heroes, is the lack of insights on the consumers that are shopping on the marketplace. Of course, especially considering that the marketplaces sometimes are also 1P. They have their own 1P model. They're a little bit protective of the consumer data that they're generating. Temu seems to be completely on the opposite side of the spectrum. So very openly sharing all the data they have and actually giving brands that want to sell on the platform insights into what other products they could bring, and even helping them develop new products. So it's still to be seen, but I think that's a very nice and attractive offer that could lure more brands to the platform. And it is a snowball effect. I think once a decent amount, there's a critical mass of brands on the platform, it's really going to start rolling. So interesting to see how that's going to develop this year.
Yeah, definitely one to watch. And from what I hear, the rumours are that they're likely to start launching US retailers sometime in March, and probably European retailers a little bit later than that. But I do know that some retailers have already been approached in the UK and asked to gauge their interest on selling on Temu. So pretty much it's going to happen, and it's going to happen probably the second quarter of the year for the UK is my prediction. Might be slightly earlier, but I reckon from sometime after Q1 to watch this one.
Great opportunity, and it's not just Temu, right? Also, Shein also has opened up their platform to European and UK and US brands. So there are many platforms to choose from. It's going to be interesting which route the brands and retailers will take.
Yeah. So I want to turn now to some of the platforms that are actually in the Diversify to Thrive white paper, which, as I said, there's a link just below to download. First of all, I want to go to the Netherlands and find out what's happening with Bol, because they for years were the marketplace in the Netherlands, but obviously they've got a lot of competition nowadays from Amazon. So how are Bol faring? And more importantly, how are brands and retailers trading on the platform doing? What are you seeing coming from Bol these days?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky enough to be in close contact with Bol a lot as global partner manager for ChannelEngine. I work closely with the biggest marketplaces we have an integration with. So absolutely true what you're saying. There's a lot more competition in the Benelux region, not just the Netherlands, also Belgium, compared to some years ago. Of course, Amazon set up shop. There are more and more of these cross-border platforms that are great options for consumers to shop on. So Bol needs to continuously improve and innovate to stay relevant in the market. That said, they still definitely retain the front runner position. I think last year they did around 6 billion in GMV, of which 60% is by their 3P partners. The big opportunity for brands to keep an eye on in this year is really for cross-border sales into the Benelux through Bol. So because Bol really wants to maintain its local offering, its local proposition as a local web shop, let's say, they're very protective of making sure that the customer experience is a local one. So they've been very closed to brands coming in from abroad and selling on the marketplace. They had to, the potential and the offering had to be very had to add something in order to be accepted onto the marketplace. Even though in the Benelux itself the platform is very open and it's a horizontal open marketplace. However, and that's also driven by this competition, of course, among others by Amazon. There is definitely a need to have just more offers and more competitive prices. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is to open up a little bit more, at least within Europe, to relevant brands and resellers. So still, you need to be able to ship within 8 days. You need to have a VAT number for the Benelux market. All these things can, of course, be arranged, but also you will still need to have Dutch customer care. However, for customer care via phone, there is a pilot to potentially open it up for English customer care, which is one of the barriers that I think a lot of non-Dutch and Belgian companies struggle with. So there are some steps being made to make it easier, and particularly through an integrated like ChannelEngine, there will be much more access for slightly smaller brands. So whereas the potential had to be quite significant in the past, that threshold is dropped. So there's just a lot more opportunity out there, and definitely something for brands within the whole of Europe to consider. Still, for UK sellers, there is a bit of a threshold. You need to be able to ship from within the EU, so there has to be a warehouse in an EU country. But also there, if you have that set up, there is more of an opportunity now. And I just wanted to highlight it, even though everybody that knows the marketplace landscape in Europe knows about Bol. They are becoming a little bit more relevant now for non-Benelux sellers because of this shift.
That's really interesting, and especially what you say about the opportunity not just being within the Netherlands, but the whole Benelux region. I mean, Belgium, great country to sell to, and having a local player there that's got the kind of profile Bol's got, definitely one to keep an eye on and consider adopting. But exactly. I want to jump just across the border now into Germany and find out what's happening with the Otto group. Massive group. And for UK interest, by the way, Otto set up their own distribution arm, which in the UK used to be called Hermes, now called Every. But that was Otto Marketplace's own in-house courier distributor, although most people now just know them as another carrier. So these are really massive players that have had a huge impact way beyond their own marketplace across Europe, and especially in the UK with Every. But getting back to just the Otto marketplace, what opportunities are you seeing there, and what's happening with Otto?
Yeah, well, so Otto, obviously the Otto group is much bigger than just Otto, right? You have Limango, you've got About You, it's a massive group. But for the Otto marketplace specifically, so just a little bit back in time, of course, Otto once upon a time just did 1P, and they opened up their marketplace some years ago. But one of the biggest impediments for non-German companies, at least, to sell on the Otto marketplace are quite strict rules and regulations, requirements to sell on the marketplace. So due to the PSP that the platform uses, you have to have a German entity because you want to be able to, to receive your payments from the marketplace. It's kind of important. And that's unfortunately still only possible if you have a German entity. Another requirement is that you ship from a German warehouse and provide the consumer return address in Germany. So two tough requirements for a lot of non-German companies to set up. It's bridgeable, but still it's a barrier.
It's now, a challenge. It's got to be worth your while to jump through those hoops.
Yeah, exactly, and let me comment on that real quick as well. The size of the marketplace is around, according to e-commerce DB numbers, around 6 to 7 billion annual GMV. So it's a significant player. It's in the top 3 in Germany. So absolutely, a great destination. Of course, it's not horizontal like Amazon or Bol that we just spoke about. So it is more focused on fashion, home, and electronics, and not so many other verticals outside that. So great opportunity, but some barriers. At least one of the barriers is now going to be slightly lifted. So, and this is the good news. You will be able to ship from outside Germany.
Fantastic.
and it's not launched yet, but it will. And shipping must still be quite quick, so you can't. It has to be from the EU, and it has to be fairly close to the German border. So surrounding countries. So if you have any warehousing set up outside of the DACH region, but nearby, that will be allowed. So that's the good news, and I think it's what we see, at least in our portfolio of clients, was one of the biggest bottlenecks, one of the biggest barriers. So it's, I think, great news. Again, I think this is also in light of these platforms trying to become more competitive, getting more offers to their platform to get more competitive prices, and compete, with all the marketplaces out there. So I think good news for brands and retailers alike to tap into this opportunity.
Yeah, and it's always good to see marketplaces kind of relaxing the rules a little bit and allowing more brands on, even if it's slow and in increments, but interesting nonetheless. But I want to move back to the UK now, and the phenomenal success that we've seen with TikTok Shop. And I don't think they've actually launched yet in European countries. They've launched in the US, but absolute massive growth we've seen in the UK. What are you seeing there? And what are you seeing European brands and retailers wanting to sell on TikTok Shop in the UK yet? Or are they holding out for when they launch in Europe?
Well, there's a lot of interest in it, Chris. So a lot of our clients that don't have a UK setup yet, or at least not D2C for UK. They're knocking on our doors asking us, hey, when is TikTok Shop launching, in Germany, France, etc. A little bit on what we've seen in the UK. Clients that have jumped on the opportunity, seen some very interesting results. It functions so differently from a traditional marketplace, so it's much more influencer and campaign driven.
And I think that's a really important thing to realize, that you can't just copy your listings from eBay, Amazon, and stick them on TikTok Shop and expect success. It is all about entertainment and content, and whether it be self-generated, whether it be doing short videos, whether it be going live, whether it be working with influencers that do videos on your behalf, you've got to be entertaining and have the content. But if you're willing to make that effort, what sort of results have you been seeing with your clients?
Yeah, that's it, exactly right. So the marketplace teams need to have a very different set of capabilities, and getting marketing involved, and it's a very different ballgame. What we've seen is that unlike other marketplaces, there doesn't seem to be like this constant flow of GMV, but it's really in peaks. So just around the campaigns that they run and the streams that these brands are doing. So you really see like this, peaks in the GMV. And you were just referring to further rollout of TikTok Shop. So there is already a soft launch in Spain. So we it's not out in the open to that extent yet, like in the UK. But they are already under the surface doing TikTok Shop Spain. And can't share too much about it, but there are plans to launch in further EU markets this year. So this will definitely be the year that it's going to be tested out in more countries. And I have to say, it's exciting because each market responds differently to this completely new concept. I think it took a while for it to catch on in the UK. I think it's going to differ really per market, because the Spanish consumer is different from the German one and the French one, and so it's hard to say where it's going to catch on. But I think definitely within a number of verticals, it's a very interesting opportunity for brands, like beauty for sure. I think that's one of the verticals where in the UK there's a lot of success. But even in some FMCG, what we've seen with one of our clients in the UK, it can really work. So exciting. I think it's going to be one of the channels to watch this year. Yeah,
and I think it's going to be different in Europe, because TikTok Shop in the UK really launched in 2021, and they kind of caught the tail end of that pandemic headwind where everyone was sat at home bored and just like everyone jumped on TikTok for something to do. Yeah. And that they naturally adopted TikTok Shop as it came along. But there won't be that sort of massive people sat at home bored out their skulls scrolling on TikTok every day in Europe, perhaps. Yeah. But equally, there's probably plenty of people in Europe that are already addicted to TikTok and will start shopping as soon as it's available. So I think that the dynamics of the world economies will be slightly different, in addition to the cultural differences.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see how many people will move from just scrolling on TikTok to buying on TikTok. Yeah, it's exciting.
And then finally, before I let you go, I wanted to move to the Middle East and find out what marketplace is there. And I've got to be honest, the Diversify to Thrive white paper with all the marketplaces in, just which you can download on the link just below, doesn't include marketplaces from the Middle East. So this is something new. What's happening in the Middle East? Which marketplaces are the ones to watch?
Yeah, so even though the Diversify and Thrive white paper contains lots of great insights on European channels, and I would definitely recommend to have a look, I wanted to throw in something today that helps brands from all around Europe, UK to any country, tap into this great opportunity. E-commerce in the Middle East, and then I'm specifically referring to the GCC countries, right? So UAE, Saudi Arabia, that part of the Middle East is growing at a phenomenal rate. It's a region with a lot of appetite for premium brands, and till date, there've been a couple of more traditional retailers and platforms that have been dominating that space. So the 3P opportunity has been relatively limited. But there's a big change coming now. So the biggest marketplace of the region, Noon, which is more of a horizontal marketplace, is opening up more to cross-border 3P. And they acquired Namshi, which is the region's actually the biggest fashion marketplace in the region. And in a joint effort, trying to acquire more great brands that are not offered locally or not to the same extent to their consumers, they're opening up to this cross-border program. This means that, especially within fashion, European brands can reach quite a large chunk of consumers in that region that are looking for these premium brands. And unlike before, it's not going to be necessary to store your goods there and have your goods in market. You can directly ship it to consumers. Of course, there is always that challenge around shipping fees. That said, this is always a bit of a challenge. That said, especially if you have brands that are unique to the market, or you have good partnerships with different logistics players, there is a big opportunity there. And I think especially now, considering macroeconomic situation in Europe, it's definitely interesting to look and diversify outside of Europe. And then, this is a region that's still relatively close, strong economies, and growing e-commerce space. So happy to anybody that's interested, happy to share that opportunity anytime with you. And we're also generating a lot of great content around the region and those channels. So happy to share that in the future.
Brilliant, and thank you for saying you're happy for people to contact you. And I think there's 3 things I'd like people to take away that want to find out more about any of the marketplace, whether it be Noon, Temu, TikTok, Bol, Otto, the marketplaces we've spoken about. Number 1, download the Diversify to Thrive white paper. The link is literally just below this video. But number 2, Mitchell, if someone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn or website? How do people get hold of you to find out more?
I'm always a big fan of direct contact, so I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, and happy to just DM me, and happy to chat and get you in touch with anybody who can help. And obviously, yeah, you can find our contact details on the website. But yeah, in a I think just in well, very soon, I think 15th of Feb, top of my head.
That was the third thing I was going to say. Yeah. You guys have got a multi-channel e-commerce webinar coming up, 3 p.m. on the 15th of February. What can people expect to learn in the webinar?
Oh, it's fantastic. We've got some great brands there. I'm not sure if I can already mention it. I'll just go ahead. So we have Stanley, which is, of course, if we're talking about TikTok, they've exploded on TikTok recently. So one of our great brands that we work with, the tumblers. We're going to be talking to them and a number of other brands about opportunities on marketplaces, diversifying, simplifying, optimizing your e-commerce. So that's going to be quite exciting. I would definitely recommend tuning in on that one.
Fantastic. So download the white paper, contact Mitchell on LinkedIn for a direct conversation, and attend the webinar on the 15th of February, which is 3 p.m. UK time. And again, we'll put a link just below this video for that. But Mitchell, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I know we've flown through so many marketplaces in such a short time, but let's meet up and talk again, and maybe chat about some other marketplaces and some developments that are happening in the near future. So thanks for your time today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for the great conversation, and see you soon.